Hello everybody and welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review, a spoiler-free review, and that is for the first two episodes of the new Star Wars series, Ahsoka, streaming on Disney Plus from tomorrow, I guess technically tonight when this review embargo goes up, because of course we've got a brand new release structure, which I talk about in a little bit of time. But as always, I'm here to give my thoughts on the not series, I guess I could say the first two episodes, because I've been very fortunate in seeing them tonight at the time of recording. I've just got back from London. It was at the BFI IMAX. There was a special screening. I was invited as both press and as part of the Joy Builders group. So I've been very lucky in getting these invitations to watch this. And I'm going to give my spoiler-free thoughts, but I'm not going to make it long. I'm not going to dive into things too much because best way to plug it, we're going to, of course, have our spoiler discussions, our weekly live streams. They're going to be returning tomorrow. We tend to go live on Wednesday nights here in the UK. That's 10 p.m. BST, 2 p.m. PT, 5 p.m. ET. So we're going to be doing those weekly, and we're going to be able to get into everything, and that's going to kickstart tomorrow. But I guess it's a great way to kickstart my thoughts heading into the series. And obviously, I watched Clone Wars many years ago. People talking about what Ahsoka means to them, all this sort of stuff, it's great. And then from getting into this series as a whole, it was kind of inevitable, I felt, that we'd end up here one day, that we would get an Ahsoka, because of course Dave Filoni, showrunner for the show, directs the first episode, Steph Green does the second episode, who worked on Book of Boba Fett as well. And I will say, I don't want to say I was hyped heading into it. I'm not hyped. It's a very weird state at the moment. Obviously, a lot of friends of the channel, obviously who run channels, Star Wars based channels, non-Star Wars stuff. Not everyone's covering this series or has been at some of the events for this. Complete respect to everybody who's took that stance. Of course, that's with the WG and the SAG strikes. And with that in mind, there's not been as much of a build-up to this. Of course, there's been no actors to do press. In theory, all the press was actually at Star Wars Celebration, which of course we attended earlier this year, which was great. We were lucky to be on one of the streaming stages for the Ahsoka panel, so we got that trailer that had a little bit more, and we got a little bit more detail on the cast and everything else. And really, since that time, it's been fairly quiet. It's been quiet on the Star Wars news front. There's not been too much development. Of course, as I mentioned, we've got the strikes, which is hampering the whole industry. So really, Star Wars hasn't been at the forefront. And I'm going to give this to Ahsoka. I'm trying to think of the right word, which is why I'm sort of stuttering ever so slightly, but it's one of those where, because there hasn't been a marketing machine in play, I actually think that's benefited my experience watching this today. And as I said, I've seen the first two episodes. It's a quarter of the series. There isn't much per se, and like a lot of the Star Wars shows, they're heavy marketing promos, shots, clips from trailers. They tend to be in the earlier episodes. So I kind of thought that getting into it, and what I was hoping for is, am I invested in these characters by the end of the second episode tonight? Am I into the story? Am I excited at what's to come? And I would just say straight away, it has delivered upon all of that and a little bit more. But it's going to be really interesting hearing different people's feedback, different people's thoughts on this. Of course, there's been some online screeners, so I didn't watch it earlier. I waited for the screening tonight. And it's one of them where I'm very excited to see how fans are going to react. Of course, this is heavily following on from Star Wars Rebels, to the point where I'm very curious to watch this with my dad, who has never watched the animated Star Wars series. There's no point asking him to try. And I think that's going to make it interesting week to week if I do watch it with him, if he can follow things, if he can't. And I think that's going to be a big question for a lot of people. For me, there were so many little things here and there that I really enjoyed that you'd pick up upon. We'll talk about them a bit more in the spoiler stuff, but it's just something where having not so much a heavy marketing campaign, not so much hype drawn to it. Of course, there's hype in that sense. It's still the Ahsoka series, but in that lens of here's the thing everyone's talking about now. It hasn't had that, and I do think it's going to benefit the series. And we've got the new time slots. So if you haven't heard, in America it's going to be 6 p.m. PT, which is 9 p.m. Eastern time. 2 a.m. here in the UK moving forwards. It's going to be a lot more spoilers online. It's going to be more of a minefield. It benefits me only because I work at 8 o'clock in the mornings in an office on a Wednesday, so I'd actually rather get up earlier and watch it properly with my setup than watch it on a computer screen on a lunch break. So I'm benefiting from the new times. And I think the series is going to be massive. I think, honestly, when it's said and done, if it delivers what it's delivered past the first two episodes, then we're in for a real treat. Of course, we now know that they are building up to a film down the line with the Mandalorian storyline, or with this. I can't remember specifically what they said at Celebration, directed by Dave Filoni, and listen, after these first two episodes, if this series is going to continue the way it started, then it's an absolute treat. I'm going to talk about something that's really not necessarily irked me, but we had a trailer come out for Percy Jackson last week, and I read those books when I was younger. I loved them. Didn't realise Edge was going to be in the series, and it was shot in the volume. And immediately we're seeing people talking about how distracting the volume can be. And my big question for this is, I've had the very, very luxurious benefit of seeing this at the cinema today. Not just any cinema, the BFI IMAX, which is the biggest cinema in the country. And yes, they took Oppenheimer out of it for one evening. And it looked perfect. And that's what's really sort of stuck with me. I didn't feel like I was watching an advert for a new technology. I'm not saying Mandalorian's done that. And I know that, of course, COVID has really affected certain shows and how they're shot, and they've had to use the volume maybe more than they wanted to. But there were times where I was sitting there thinking, is this a miniature? Are these miniatures, or is this CGI? And that's the best things about Star Wars, which we've not had in that sense of discussion. Of course, we've had Andor shot on location, sparingly used the volume in London, I think for glass reflections on Coruscant, they said in an interview. But it's something that I think a lot of people approach this, is that the American base is very much tied into this volume stuff. And whatever is being done on the volume is almost flawless in these first 2 episodes. And I think that's a really big thing for me, is that, yes, okay, it's going to look nice at home, you've got a nice setup, doesn't mean too much, but shows are going to age like films. And certainly if you can nail the form and nail the production design, that's going to go a long way in helping it. And I do think so far these episodes have delivered with that. And I think that's something a lot of other people are also going to be talking about, is, sometimes it looks so obvious on the volume. And again, it's understandable, it's a new technology, it's an amazing technology in its infancy. But there are certainly, some studios that have used it for very, very worrying uses of it. Percy Jackson, sorry to pick on it, but it's a shot of Edge at a beach. Could have done that practically, and obviously you can't do stars practically, but it's one of those where it does deliver with this. And I'm not going to talk specifics of characters. It's obviously a massive cast in this. I'm going to talk about Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, though. And obviously we've seen her in The Mandalorian, we've seen her in the Book of Boba Fett. She's played her a couple of times, but really the big thing is, can she hold her own in a series? Me and the lead character, of course, name, title, all of that sort of stuff. And the answer is yes, she's great in this. And one thing that caught me off guard, and it really shouldn't have caught me off guard, and one of the words I used to message someone was, it feels really mature, the series. And it's a very weird thing to say about Star Wars, calling Star Wars mature. It's not adult, of course, or anything like that. But it didn't feel like, because this is a Star Wars thing, we now have to do this. Because this is Star Wars, we're going to also have to do that. I never felt like they've took that route with it, which is really interesting. And again, we're 2 episodes in. Who knows what the next 6 are going to happen? That's what makes doing a spoiler-free review harder when you've seen a quarter of a series. But it is something to keep in mind, that the tone and approach to this feels somewhat different. And the opening titles do that. If you've seen it, if you're watching it down the line, you'll know what I mean. If you haven't, I'm telling you right now, you can have an amazing surprise as the series starts. And it feels like they're not picking apart Disney Plus, they're not going in on that. You've got a beautiful score from Kevin Kiner, who so rightfully has made the jump into live action with Filoni, who's been involved with this character since the inception back in 2008. And the soundtrack was probably the best thing of the first 2 episodes. And there were 2 pretty great episodes. The choreography, the action was great, the performances were great, all aboard. It was a solid opening 2 episodes. But that score has jumped this, I think, to the next level. And that's something we've been blessed with some of the Star Wars shows. Andor's got a superb soundtrack by Nicholas Britell. Of course, The Mandalorian's had Ludwig Göransson. And this as well. Kenobi and Natalie Holt as well. It's great that we're bringing on different composers, and they can all bring different identities to their music. And Kevin Kiner, absolutely perfect. There's an amazing credit sequence that's at the end of each episode. It feels very Game of Thrones, not the theme, just how in which they want to do it. But the music that's going over the top, you just sort of want to sit there and listen. I'm excited when they start releasing this online. And also, we're still waiting for Rebels, I think seasons 3 and 4 to drop online the soundtrack. So there's a lot of that. And I'm just going to say this now, I'm going to round it. I'm going to make this review a little bit shorter than they can be normally. It's tricky to talk about 2 episodes of an 8-episode series, spoiler-free, when we don't know what's going to happen next. I can only talk about what I've seen from these, and I'm going to try and save as much as I can for the spoiler discussion tomorrow. I'm going to kind of round out with this, is that if you're watching this at this point, you're sold on the show. You're going to probably end up watching the show. The way I'm going to pose this to you now is this worth getting up early for in the mornings? Maybe. it always depends on you as a Star Wars fan. But for me, especially after those first 2 episodes, episode 3, I'm going to be getting up early. I need to watch it. I don't want to risk spoilers. I don't want people talking about it. There's some great things they've hidden from marketing that we get in these early episodes. That's not references, that's not cameos, story points. And that is what I'm excited for with this. You might think you know where the story is going to go, but I feel it is somewhat different. And with Dave Filoni's approach as a showrunner, I thought episode 1 direction was pretty great, if I'm being honest. And in a really weird way, it felt like The Phantom Menace. And to me, that's a massive compliment to give out. But in terms of the director's approach, there was just something about the production that felt, and I've said this when we saw the Acolyte trailer at Celebration, it looked like, you know, the production design of The Phantom Menace being shot modern, again, 25 plus years later now, here we are. And that's a really exciting thing that I don't think we've had with some of the other shows. And I don't mean to sort of diss on them, but it's something really interesting that I'm picking up more. Is it the blend of them having maybe more sets for this series, or is it the approach of how it's been written? Because the writing, I'm very not surprised by. It's what we expect. It's Filoni making that jump from animation to live action. And I know that people are going to have their say about Mandalorian, about season 3, whatever they want to say, fine. But if you're going into this worried thinking, oh, it's just going to be like the Mandalorian season 3, it's really not. This really is the Star Wars Rebels sequel that we've all been waiting for, and I really hope you get to enjoy it when it does come tomorrow. So that's going to round out this very short review, spoiler-free review. Join us tomorrow night for the in-depth spoiler discussion on parts 1 and 2. We'll be going through all the big moments from this, talking about some of our favourite characters returning, trying to get some more points of view, and we'll be live every Wednesday with those throughout the entire season. So that's going to do it. Please comment your thoughts. Let me know if you're looking forward to this, if you're not. And of course, if you want to hit the subscribe button, there's a lot of things happening at the moment on the channel. We've got the David Fincher retrospective starting Monday. We've got a home media series starting up. We've got these reviews. We've got new releases. It's starting to get a bit better things out. We're getting back on track, which is always good to see. But aside from that, thank you all for watching, and be sure to join us on the next one. Take care.